Hi, I'm following along with Paul McWhorter's Raspberry Pi lessons. We're on number 9, and he introduced using PWM on the GPIO pins on the Pi. He showed us how to get started with it and then gave us homework of making a dimmable lead in steps with two buttons, one to dim it and one to make it brighter. So it seemed like a pretty straightforward progress. So I figured I'd get right on the homework. So again, I'm accessing my Raspberry Pi with VNC to remote into it. So that's what you see on the screen here is our remote into it. So here's our code for it. I thought about doing it the hard way with the previous state and new state and looking for the change in state for the updating the whether the button's been pressed or not. But I just they have that built-in event detect on the GPIO library where you can detect a rising level on each pin. So it just didn't make sense to go through all that trouble with that code. So the good thing about that is we don't need to worry about the time library because it's like event or interrupt driven is how it works. So we'll get to our code. So we GPIO library imported the 3 pins that we're using, 1 for the LED and 2 for the buttons. And then our lead step, I made a global variable to keep track of which step of we're using on our LED. So we're doing that. We'll skip our function for right now and go down to our setup. We're using BCM because I'm using the cobbler, which has BCM labels. We're setting up the LED pin. We're creating an instance of the PWM, calling it LP. And we're starting it with a duty cycle of 0. And then we're doing the setup of our buttons. I'm using the internal pull down resistor so that pressing it will make it go high. So that's what we're doing there for both of those. Call them 1 dim and 1 bright button. So, and then these 2 just have the event detect thing set up for event detect. And we're doing, like I say, we're doing it on the GPIO rising, and both of them are called back to the same function. You don't necessarily do that, but it made it easy with this. I was able to do that because when you do this function, it passes in which pin is calling the function, as a parameter, which pin it is. So we know whether it's the dim button or the brightness button. So that's what we're doing. And again, we have the built-in debounce with that it won't detect another change in state for 200 milliseconds the way we got it set up. And that way we don't have to have a while true or anything, or just do an input like we use and waiting for any kind of input. But I said Q to quit, and once we do that, then we just do the GPIO cleanup to exit cleanly. So now we'll get up to our function that gets our callback function that gets called every time through. So like I said, we're passing it which button called it, whether it's the dim button or the brightness button. Like I said, we got this global lead step that we're keeping track of in our function. If the button is the dim one, then we're subtracting 1 from our lead step. If it's the bright button, we're adding 1 to our lead step, making it brighter. these two lines here, two if statements, just keep it in bounds somewhere between 0 and 8. Won't let it go below 0 or above 8. That just makes our math right. Now we're just printing out our LED steps so we know about where we are on our LED. And then we're using the change duty cycle, LP.change duty cycle. And we're just doing our lead step over 8 and then multiplying it by 100. So if we're on 8, it'd be 8 over 8 is 1 times 100. So that would be 100. If it's 2 over 8, it would be 0.25 times 100 would be 25. And if it's 0 over 8, that's 0 times 100 is 0. And that seemed to work pretty good. Paul said that he wasn't sure if 0 would give you an off, but I don't see any color in my LED when I have a 0 there. So I think for all intents and purposes, it gives us a 0. Anyhow, so we're ready to run it, I guess. We can go down here and let's go ahead and run it. And like I said, the only thing comes up is it goes through everything and sets everything up. And now we're down here in this input, and it's, even though that's blocking, we can still do everything we need with the buttons. So like I said, the green one's going to go up and the white one will take it back down. So we can go. And you can look at the screen, you see the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you keep hitting it, it's just going to give you 8 again. It's not going to go any higher than 8. If we want to come down, and 0, like you say, 0 is all the way off. 0 and 1. Definitely 0 has got no light at all on it. So that was the basic homework, 27 lines of code, not too bad, and got it working in a matter of minutes. So anyhow, thanks, Paul, for putting us on this journey. Look forward to more lessons. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.